Hello, Sagittarius. Welcome to your solar eclipse in Libra reading. And so, uh, one thing I want to just say before we get started is I hope you're doing well. This solar eclipse is happening for you in your 11th house. And so, I actually really love this for you. I have the cards already drawn, and so we're going to get right into it. I actually forgot my train of thought, like that I was going to say before that, but that's okay. Maybe I'll remember it later. If not, then it just wasn't meant to be. But anyway, so we have the eclipse for you happening in your 11th house in Libra. And so it's definitely about relationships that you have with your friends, with your groups, like finding your tribe or like the tribe that you kind of associate with, as well as like allies as well. And I think it's a very sweet time as far as like networking for you, definitely. Even though we have Venus in the ruler of this eclipse in your 12th house, I think it can be more so like finding a more spiritual tribe or finding and aligning with people that have maybe the same spiritual values as you. I don't think it's not without its, undercutting frenemies kind of vibe because we do have like Venus in Scorpio kind of like being the less nice, kind of like stabby kind of energy when it comes to relationships in this actual um, eclipse. And so when I think about this, I think about it being more of a transformation of your own goals. And therefore, you can maybe come off as and I'm not saying you are this way, but I feel like some people might feel like a bit jealous, that maybe you are going into more of a glow up and they're feeling like, I just kind of get the vision of people being like, oh, you want to achieve this and you're really working hard at this. Well, like, who do you think you are? Like, you think you're better than us, kind of thing. That's what I'm getting more so with Venus, the ruler of this eclipse, happening in the 12th house, but the actual eclipse being in the 11th. I don't have to tell you to ignore it. I think you guys already know to ignore it. Um, but I do think it kind of drains you, to be honest. Because when we look at the 11th house, that's where Jupiter has its joy, and it finds a lot of allies. And so when I look at a 11th house eclipse, it can be a lot of changes when it comes to friendships and um, a lot of action when it comes to your relationships in particular, and it can be a bit spicy, and so therefore it can be a bit draining. And I know that you do well with spice, but I think this might be like just a bit too much spice for you because it can feel like everybody's kind of like stabbing you in the back, and you're trying to kind of stay on top of things. And I'm not saying that you don't stay on top of things, but I'm just saying, again, it can be draining when so much is going on in your relationships with people, especially when it has to do with family and your career. Mercury is going to be in Libra conjunct Lilith during this eclipse. Mercury rules over your 10th and your 4th house. Or sorry, no, your 10th and your 7th house, excuse me. And so we see relationships when it comes to your authority, when it comes to authority figures or like the mother figure, which is why I say like home life or just kind of like family in general. It doesn't have to be like all family members, but it's definitely relationships within relationships with authority figures or relationships like public relations or like reputation even. There can be a bit of gossip that's happening. Again, like ignore it if you can, but if you need to, definitely call people out on it for spreading nasty rumors. I'm just letting you know that can happen. I do think it's a time where you do find like a nice support system since Jupiter is in the 7th as well. And then you have Saturn in your 4th. So I think it can be a time where your friends almost become more of a family than your actual family does. um, That's how I read it. It can be a time where you're really finding that, who's your friend and who's you're not, who is not, who is there to really support you and who is not. Um, it can also be a time where maybe you're trying to work into more of a time where you're more interested in being a bit more service oriented with others and out in public, or being more of a public servant, is how I read that as well, with the 10th house being involved as well as the 7th, or just like working one-on-one with people. Becoming more of a leader in a work situation is something I could also see as well, and therefore maybe reaping the benefits of creating good relationships with other people, and maintaining good relationships with other people when it comes to work situations. But that's what I see the most of. And so let's go ahead and get into the cards. And so we have the 9 of Wands as well as the 10 of Wands. So this, to me, 9 of Wands says I am tired, but the 10 of Wands thankfully says, even though I have so much on my plate and I am trying to juggle it all, you're almost at the end of the struggle. But with the 10 of Wands, just make sure that when you need help, that you do ask for help. That you do ask for help. Help will be there when you need it. I think with the 10 of Wands in particular, it's about delegating tasks, and that's also why I say like becoming a leader is going to be something that I think you're really put into the position more to do during this eclipse in particular. So it doesn't always have to be like friends are there to help in work situations, but it can definitely be like friends are there to help when you need it in your personal life. But in work life, you are going to have to delegate. You're going to have to um, delegate. I almost forgot that word for a second. Did I say that right? If I didn't say it right, we're just, you know what I meant. And so you're going to have to delegate tasks. The 10 of Wands can very much be about like, don't try to do everything on your own. That's why you're getting a lot of anxiety about what is done and what isn't, creating a good structure to make sure that things are getting done, not only lists, but also making sure that you have a good structure and you are checking up without being critical of people and not without being micromanaging, making sure that things are getting done. Um, just preparing for things ahead of time, I think, can also be something, not waiting till the last minute can be something that's also very beneficial as well. But you're almost at the end, so don't worry too much about that. Your goals get done. I think as long as you got that structure coming in, we have the Star card and the Strength card as well that come up. So it can be, feel like, you're really under a lot of pressure. But again, I think it's all about becoming that leader in a situation. Um, I think the King of Wands is more so you than anything. I don't think this is coming from someone else. I think this is more like a time where you are having to be bold, be brave in a situation for everybody else, and taking on a lot of responsibility in that way. Also, Sagittarius, I think it will be a lot about you having to be the leader, as kind of being like the peacemaker in a situation, especially if it has to do with like coworkers. It can Venus rules over not only your 11th house, but also your 6th house, and so it can be like, what goals do you have for your health? And therefore, laying down the boundaries as far as what you can and cannot take on as far as health matters, or just like creating a new routine because maybe certain things aren't working with new goals that you have, or a time of being a bit more social, and so you're needing to keep a planner, and that can also come up as well. But other than that, Sagittarius, that is your reading. I hope that everything is going well for you. Feel free to let me know how this eclipse goes for you, and I will talk to you in the next one.